Welcome to the Indianapolis Urban League, as I refer to it, the House of Sam built. This is officially known as the Sam H. Jones Indianapolis Urban League Center in honor of our founding president who served this organization for over 35 years, Sam Jones. The National Urban League was founded in 1910 in New York City and expanded throughout this country. The Indianapolis Urban League founded in 1965 here in the city of Indianapolis, and it was always the vision of Sam to at one point have his own facility accessible on a bus line where we would be very visible and able to serve the clients in the city of Indianapolis, and how blessed we were when we were able to piece together the property that we sit on now and actually be a neighbor of this great university. To my knowledge, there's only one other Urban League affiliate out of our approximate 105 affiliates across the country that can say they have as a neighbor an urban university. And having the university here has given us a great opportunity for partnerships with philanthropy, education, social work, School of Business. Actually, the university is a tenant of ours as well. They leased the second floor of this facility for the IU Kelley School of Business. And I wish I had more space so I could invite some of the other units of the university to be a part of this Urban League as well. But indeed, studying philanthropy is one of those things that I am always willing to listen and learn a little bit more about, as particularly as we look at the challenges of facing our not-for-profit organizations today.
To give you some idea who's in the audience.
The fact that we have to be accountable,
if you get a chance.
justify what we do, how we do it, and encourage people to make an investment. And that's not just give us a donation, because as I approach our potential funders, I have to think about what does your investment that I'm asking you to make with us do for us, but more importantly, what will it do for you as you consider partnering with the Indianapolis community. So indeed, welcome to the Urban League, and I'm very much looking forward to this exciting play lecture this morning. And if you have time, I think we've got enough people here in the facility when you finish that if you'd like to have a tour and see what we do here, we'd be honored and welcome to do that. So thanks a lot for choosing to have this forum at the Urban League today, Larry, and without taking any more time, I'll let you move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Slash, and we appreciate the opportunity to be here at the Urban League. Good morning.
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 Good morning.
Good morning.
Excellent. I come out of the African American church tradition, and in that tradition we have something that we call and response, and so it's important to ensure that we hear from you. It is my high honor and distinct pleasure to introduce Ms. Kanyere Eaton, who is the Executive Director of the Sister Fund, and I'm just going to read an abbreviated version of her biographical sketch. Kanyere Eaton is the Executive Director of the Sister Fund, a small private foundation dedicated to the economic, social, political, and spiritual empowerment of women and girls. With the express purpose of bringing women to voice, the Sister Fund has sponsored programs for women whose nonprofit work supports fullness of life for women and girls. Last year alone, her contributions as a grant maker were recognized by the Women's Funding Network, from which she received a Changing the Face of Philanthropy Award. In the same month, the Association of Black Foundation Executives presented her with the Emerging Leader in Philanthropy Award. Kanyere has worked in both the public and private sectors as a social service professional, with backgrounds in early childhood education, substance abuse, direct service management, and hunger prevention. As an ordained minister and social worker, she emphasizes the inextricable correlation between the transformation of our communities and the holistic well-being of each member. Embracing the important work of helping to build meaningful linkages between theology and community, she previously served as Director of Social Services at the Riverside Church in New York City. Currently pursuing a doctorate in ministry from the San Francisco Theological Seminary, Kanyere holds a Bachelor of Science degree from Cornell University, a Master of Divinity degree from Union Theological Seminary, and a Master of Science in Social Work degree from Columbia University. Ordained in 1991, she is an associate minister at the Redeemed Church of Jesus Christ in Mount Vernon, New York. And as I shared with the group yesterday in reading and learning about and getting to know Kanyere, it says biographical sketch, but I think it's a more appropriate term is tapestry, because given her awareness, advocacy, action, and accountability, it's clear that she is here to stay as someone who speaks on behalf of and with women and girls whose voices are sometimes muted. I also would hasten to add that at the end we will plan to wrap up at about 12:40. So we're very excited about Kanyere being here and look forward to her remarks as well as your questions and comments. Kanyere.
Thank you. Well, good morning. I'm so pleased that you could be here, and I want to thank you for being willing to share your lunchtime with me. Does everyone have something to eat? Okay, that's wonderful. Thanks again to Mr. Joe Slash for hosting us today, and to my friend and my brother and my colleague, Mr. Larry Smith, for your warm invitation and for your introduction. I'm just so thrilled to be able to share with you what I feel is a genuinely important learning, certainly of mine and of the Sister Funds. There's a little information in your packet about the Sister Fund. There's a 10-year report of ours, and there's also an article that Helen LaKelly Hunt, the Sister Fund's founder, and I wrote together about some of the things that I want to talk with you about today. So the title or the subject of this talk is More Than Money. More Than Money. Okay, and so I'm hoping that after I have a chance to share some thoughts with you, you'll ask questions and share any that you have with me. This could be a reciprocal learning that it'll feel so valuable for all of us. So when I joined the Sister Fund in 2000, I did so with the fantasy that our grant-making budget would be sufficient to address the needs of most all of our worthy applicants. Coming from the grant-seeking nonprofit side, $1 million seemed like a whole lot of money to me. And having worked in nonprofits where fundraising efforts required almost as much time and as much energy as the service provision that we did, I was happy to finally be seated at the other end of the table. Finally, I could give it, not just be asking for it. Not only would we provide at the Sister Fund our applicants with grants that were substantial, I imagined that we would make multi-year grants to the organizations with whom we had formed meaningful linkages and collaborations. All would be well once I was in the foundation side. And then during my first funding cycle, I was met with the striking reality of my misperception. The Sister Fund received 170 proposals for a docket budget of $200,000. Let me just let you sit with that for a second. Of the 170 proposals we received, 100 of them met our guidelines specifically. They were great matches for our mission and our vision and the work that they were potentially going to do with the $50,000 we would give them was going to absolutely change the lives of women and girls in New York City. They had to be funded. I began the process with anxious excitement and frankly ended it with disappointment and dissipated naivete. We made 13 grants and rejected 87. I met a few of the women who were in the pool of 87 who had been rejected. I visited their sites. I experienced their programs. I was devastated, in short. Even more perplexing than this was the fact that even after we had given grants and certain organizations had received them from us, they needed more support. The almighty dollar was not the panacea I had imagined it would be. We gave grants, but grantees still needed advocacy, connections, technical support, space, and the foundation's ability to leverage. And so necessity, beyond what I could have imagined, and creative proactivity on the part of our grantees taught us that useful, effective philanthropy can be comprised of much more than money. I have the privilege of working with Helen LaKelly Hunt, who's the founder and the president of the Sister Fund, which is a small private foundation you'll read about in your packet in New York City. Helen named the Sister Fund in honor of her sororal bond with her sisters Swanee and June. And you'll learn as I continue to talk about the Sister Fund that we take our title very seriously. In 2001, we began saying to our grantees, when we give you a grant, we don't just want to mail a check. We'd like to actually get a chance to see you. We want to introduce you to our trustees and introduce you to our president. We want you to see our staff and our office space. But more than that, we're hoping that you can tell us a little more about who you are and what it would actually look like if a funder were a sister. How would it feel to you if you didn't have to be nervous at the 3-month check-in when we call to say, how are things going, when you could actually say, listen, we grossly underestimated what this program should look like. We underestimated how much money and how much time and how much infrastructure we would need to succeed. And so we need to revamp. Can we get back to you in 3 more months with what we figured out how to do? We said to them, tell us what it would look like if a funder was a supporter with more than dollars. And so we got all kinds of responses. Particularly in 2001, just after September 11th, our office is located 15 blocks from ground zero. And so after we got over the shock and the pain of the fact that our city had been turned on its head, had been just turned upside down, we began to hear from grantees. They began to say to us, organizations and foundations that funded us for 10 years are starting to withdraw. Foundations that gave us their unwavering support in places where we could always go for help in a crisis are now responding to a different set of crises. They're not responding to us. The issues of women and girls are not important anymore in this city. What are we going to do? We really need you to help us. And so when we invited them in to tell us what they needed, they said things like, if a funder were really a sister, that foundation would fund us at the level of our request for perpetuity. We get a grant every year until we closed our doors, or until there was no more need in New York City for women and girls. We said, well, that's nice. They said if a foundation were to be like a sister, they would invite us to tables we don't get invited to. They would nominate us for boards. They would invite us to conferences and pay our way. They would invite us to educational forums that we don't get invitations to. They would support and leverage our presence in the community. One person said, listen, I need to tell you the truth. If you really wanted to be a sister to my organization, you would shorten your application process and diminish the time I have to spend compiling papers to send to you for the small $10,000 grant you're going to give me. It's not worth the time that I spend putting the application together to get this small grant. We were embarrassed, but we learned. One person said, you could recommend us to other funders who are larger than you and can fund us at higher levels. Someone else said, we could use your specific technical assistance and support. Others said, give us opportunities to promote our work to a broader audience. Someone said, host a party at your donor's house and invite all her wealthy friends to come and support our work. So we got a myriad of suggestions as to how we could be a sister. What we heard most often was introduce us to other funders. We can't get in the door in some of those larger foundations or some of those foundations that just don't feel as accessible to grassroots nonprofit organizations. But you're friends with them. You have lunch with them. You're on first-name basis with them. Hook us up. Help us. So we took that seriously. When we first heard these requests, we thought, the Sister Fund has a staff of 3 and has an annual budget of $1 million. Why are you asking us for extended support? Do you know that the Rockefeller Foundation is just 2 miles down the road and Ford is closer than Rockefeller? Do you know that the Open Society Institute, George Soros, is right down the block? Why would you ask this tiny little foundation to help you in more meaningful ways? And then we began to take our title seriously ourselves, and we said, wow, we've asked them what it would look like for a funder to be a sister. We've asked them what we could give them beside this small monetary grant that would make a difference to them, and they've been honest with us. Let's see what we can do about it. We were pretty intimidated, but we began. And so one of the first things we did is 2 organizations approached us